Hi friends, Prepared Suburbanite here. You know, I've been watching the news off and on over the last couple of weeks, and the news media seems to be dominated by all the talks of the impeachment inquiries. So I decided I needed to do a little bit of research so that I could understand what this process is really all about, and I want to share that with you because it's important. Impeaching the president is a pretty big step. Right now, they're calling it an inquiry. That's kind of the very first step that's been outlined, at least in the historical patterns of impeachment, the way I've researched it here. There's basically three stages, which is, and we're in the first stage. So the stage number one is the inquiry or the investigation to determine if there's enough merit to the accusations to actually move to stage two. Now, stage two in the proceedings would be having a member of the House prepare a resolution of articles of impeachment that would then go to the House Judiciary Committee. And the House Judiciary Committee goes through whatever process and procedures they may have within their committee, bring it to a vote, and based on a simple majority, yes or no kind of a vote, they would recommend back to the Speaker that the articles of impeachment be voted upon by the full House of Representatives. So that's basically the second stage. The details in there get kind of interesting. So based on the research that I've done, there's a number of steps. So once we do this whole inquiry thing right now, which is not an official impeachment proceeding, it's an inquiry, it's an investigation. It's what the police do after they've received information about a potential crime being committed. That's kind of what's going on right now. So here's the proceedings and here's the process. An impeachment resolution must be introduced by a member of the House of Representatives. Now that's a full impeachment resolution with articles of impeachment included. The Speaker of the House then directs the U.S. House Committee on the Judiciary or a special committee, which has not yet been done, to hold a hearing on the resolution to decide whether to put the measure to a vote by the full chamber of the House and when to hold such vote. So right now, the Judiciary Committee is actually engaged in fact-finding and an inquiry kind of a mode. They're investigating certain allegations, but that's all they're doing. There has not yet been an impeachment resolution introduced by a member of the House of Representatives, and then it has not been referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. They're acting independent of the process right now, best I can tell. So once the Judiciary Committee approves with a simple majority of the resolution that was previously submitted by a member of the House, if they approve that resolution, then it moves to the full House for a vote. A simple majority is all it takes of those present and voting in the House to approve the article or articles of impeachment, and the president is impeached. Now, impeachment does not in itself remove the president from office. It's similar to an indictment in criminal law. It is thus essentially the statement of charges against the president. So once the simple majority of those present in the House vote yes to approve the article or articles of impeachment, the president is impeached. Next step, the whole procedure then moves to the Senate, where a trial is held to determine if the president committed a crime. There's no set procedure for this. How it's conducted would be set by the Senate leadership. And right now, we all know that the Senate is controlled by the Republicans, while the House is controlled by the Democrats. So there's some political gamesmanship going on right there. Members of the House do serve as what they call managers, which are basically the prosecutors. They would bring the results of their investigation, of their inquiries, to the trial. They present the evidence, and the Senate deliberates on the evidence. The president would have representation via counsel in the Senate process. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court presides over the trial in the Senate. The senators then listen to all the evidence presented, including closing arguments from each side, and then retire to deliberate. Senators would then reconvene and vote on whether the president is guilty or not guilty of the crimes he's accused of. It takes a supermajority, a 2/3 vote of the Senate, to convict the president. If the president is found guilty, he is removed from office, and the vice president is sworn in as president. The hearing in the Senate, along with the charge in the House that the president has committed a crime, is not a legal one. No penalty other than the removal from office is brought against a president in an impeachment hearing. That would require a whole new and whole different and separate process if somebody really wanted to try to convict the president of a crime. But this is an impeachment, and it's not necessarily a crime. High crimes and misdemeanors, what the definition of that term is going to be debated from now until God knows when. But the impeachment process is not a criminal procedure. It's simply delineated in the Constitution what needs to transpire. There are rules that have been put together in both the House and the Senate on how to conduct these kinds of hearings. It's been done before. There's been a number of different impeachments that have been going on. Most famously, I guess, Andrew Johnson back in the post-Civil War era was impeached by the House but acquitted in the Senate by one vote. And most recently, Bill Clinton was impeached in the House and was acquitted in the Senate, and obviously not removed from office. Took my wife to her physical therapy treatment this morning, and while I was sitting in the waiting room waiting for her to get done, it usually takes 45 minutes to an hour for her to go through whatever she needs to go through in that back room that I'm not supposed to go back to. A lady came in and sat down next to me and said, "Hey, is this seat taken?" And I was there on my iPhone, kind of flipping through different things on my iPhone, looking at Fox News and looking at this and that. And this lady turned to me and she said, "Do you think Trump's going to be impeached?" And I thought for just a second and said, no, I don't think he's going to be impeached. I don't think there's enough time between now and the election in November of 2020 to go through the whole process. That's just my opinion. And she said, well, he ought to be. And I said, well, that's your opinion. When we got home, I opened up my email and looked, and I got an email distribution, I guess, from my U.S. congressman. And he is supporting the impeachment inquiry. And here's what he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing right now. He says that President Trump is interfering with our free and fair elections by investigating a political rival through the whole thing with the Ukraine and all that. It's an abuse of power. It's a betrayal of his oath of office, and that they have in the Senate, in the House, no choice but to move forward with an official impeachment inquiry. And he posted a link to a survey that basically said, do you support the impeachment of the president? And yes or no. And I responded, no, I don't think you've got the grounds yet developed to impeach the president. The inquiry, that's the House's business. The whole investigation to determine whether high crimes and misdemeanors have occurred, yep, go ahead and do that. Take your time, get the facts, do everything you can, but there's no such thing as an official inquiry. It's part of the process. It's not official. Nobody voted on it, but they're proceeding anyway with this inquiry, and they're starting to do all kinds of stuff, subpoena witnesses and this and that. So we'll see what happens, but they are entirely within their rights as the House of Representatives to engage in this inquiry. In fact, I believe that for once I may agree with my congressman that they have a duty to do this, and yes, they do have a duty to do it, but they do not have a duty to automatically impeach or threaten impeachment or create fear-mongering, which is what I think they're doing, because the general public doesn't understand what the term impeachment means. I think the general public thinks that once a president's impeached, he's thrown out of office and that's the end of it. And it's a criminal offense and he could go to jail. I've seen way too many editorial cartoons with the best wall is the wall that's going to be built in the prison where President Trump is going to be imprisoned. That's not going to happen. Impeachment is not a criminal process. It's not a criminal prosecution. The punishment, if convicted in the Senate, would be removal from office. And that's the whole process. There's a number of steps that have to be completed in order for the president to be impeached. The whole question of high crimes and misdemeanors, what the Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution refers to treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, treason and bribery, that's pretty specific. High crimes and misdemeanors, non-specific at all. A lot of debate back and forth about what it really means. I think the founders were deliberately vague with respect to this to give some impetus to changing times in the future, to give the House a little bit of leeway on what they need to be doing. But it could include, perjury, tax evasion, dereliction of duty, unbecoming conduct, drunkenness on the job, that kind of a thing. but it's very nonspecific. But it is whatever the House says it is. And he can be convicted in the House of impeachment. No, he can't be convicted. He can be charged and impeached in the House. But that allows him to move to the Senate, the whole process to move to the Senate, to actually go through a fair trial like any citizen would have access to a fair trial. So I think the confusion is impeachment means out of here. 2 presidents have been impeached in the past. Johnson back in the Civil War days, or just post-Civil War days, for something absolutely frivolous, and he was acquitted, but by 1 vote. Bill Clinton, for the actions that he undertook while the president in the White House, was impeached in the House and acquitted in the Senate. So, to the best of my knowledge, no president has ever been removed from office via an impeachment protocol. So, people need to understand that there are multiple steps in this process. What really concerns me is what's been going on for the last almost 3 years since Trump's been president. They've been calling for impeachment of the president since before he was elected. If that doesn't sound like a witch hunt to anybody, it certainly does to me. Now, there are a lot of folks in the House and possibly in the Senate that are adamant that Donald Trump should not be president, should never have been president, and should be removed from office immediately. And there's a ton of those people, and you know who they are. But I am very concerned that if our Constitution doesn't stand faithful to its founders' wishes on this whole process of impeachment, that we will be doomed as a country. We have to follow the steps that are laid out. We have to follow our history. We need to do it the right way. If we don't, we're going to lose it. The election of 2020 is about 13 months away right now. Big choices need to be made. If they can impeach the president and remove him from office before November of 2020, it's going to be a very interesting election process, because we're going to have Mike Pence then being the president of the United States, unless they figure out a way to impeach him first before the president, and then Nancy Pelosi will be our president. But so much for nightmares. If this doesn't give you a reason to be prepared for the future, to be prepared for the upheavals that are coming, I don't know what else I can say. Be prepared, deal with being a prepper every which way you can. Invest in yourself, invest in your stockpiles, invest in the water, the shelter, the food, and the safety and security of your family. This is the Prepared Suburbanite reminding you to be prepared always, and I'll see you all on the next video.